Faith, great to see you.
Great to see you, Joe.
Well, I'm so thrilled to connect with you. I've followed you on LinkedIn. I've seen your appearances at various sustainability conferences, and then, prior to my life at Sustainable Tech Partner, I followed Kyndryl and the spin out from IBM. So between knowing the company and getting to know you, it's just great to connect today. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's been an incredible journey. I came 1 month after the company spun, so December 21. And in that short period of time, a lot has happened. So I'm excited.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I do want to talk about the spin out a little bit in the journey, but
Yeah.
I want to rewind a little bit to give some viewers and listeners and readers a little bit of background on you. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I think your career started in branding and marketing, and I think around the 2005 timeframe, you extended into sustainability with key efforts over at Wyndham, the hospitality company. I think. Number one, do I have the timing right? And number two, what drove that focus on sustainability initially?
So it's around that time period, and I was overseeing new product business development at Wyndham Worldwide. I actually created my job.
Okay.
And people are like, "What?" Because it didn't exist back then. And so I always tell people, you know what? This is a space where you can create solutions and help companies move forward. And so what happened was that I was designing a new hotel brand and working with an architect named Michael Graves.
Hmm.
And we identified that the consumer, called the lifestyle of health and sustainability, was going green. So we started incorporating elements into the design of the hotel, whether it was architectural, whether it was bedding, whether it was the food and beverage, whether it was the experience that you had. And that project was, I started seeing that and incorporating those types of things into that asset. The other thing, though, that was really important was that my son asked me to go see the movie Inconvenient Truth by Al Gore.
Okay.
And Mom, this is really important. And when I saw that film, it for me clicked. This is going to be strategic for every company in the world. So I had the opportunity to talk with our chairman and CEO of Wyndham Worldwide. Did very well with that project. We had a 200% increase in sales of the hotel plans. And more importantly, though, I had a conversation with him that he needed to start this. So he let me start it with almost zero resources, but that's how I began my journey in this space. So I created my job.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, in many ways, you also helped to pioneer the industry. In those early days, did it almost feel like you were standing on a soapbox with very few ears and audience in front of you? And fast forward to present day,
Oh my
have we
gosh.
made progress? Are corporations coming around? Are you seeing signs of progress?
Well, it's really interesting. We have made tremendous progress
Mhm.
because there are things that you do today, but at the beginning, there was not, as you said, software systems that tracked, measure, and helped you report. There were no regulations that said you had to be the net zero. There were, all kinds of opportunities, and that's what I would say, to help develop solutions. I remember working with a major accounting firm to do assurance of our data. And people said, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "Because these numbers are going to be important and our board of directors are reporting on it." So it was the opportunity to develop a lot of what I would say solutions, programs. And what was great about it is that my counterparts at the other hospitality companies like IHG, Hilton, et cetera, were all together. We would have meetings and we
Mhm.
would tell each other, "How are you doing this? How are you doing this?" So it was very open and collegial. And we actually developed some industry best practices with the American Hotel Lodging Association. I chaired that, but it was very collaborative. It wasn't a competitive space. It was so new that we
Mhm.
were all sharing together. Fast forward to today, where it's now being regulated, where you have many companies now coming forward with solutions, where there's a challenge because we do have environmental climate change, and you see the impacts that it's having on businesses. So you're adapting and you're mitigating and you're managing and you're trying to, also include this into your business model so that you can decarbonize from growth. So it's a very different value proposition than in the very early days when that was all not happening.
Yeah. You're making me smile because your journey, listen, I have not been on the journey of the scale that you've been on, but from my eyes as a journalist, reporter, blogger, I witnessed similar trends in the managed services market around 2005. MSPs collaborating with each other to help define the market, define standards. No one really knew how to build recurring revenue IT services practices, what tools to use, et cetera. And there was this collaboration. It's still there, which is wonderful in that market. And that's where I spent most of my career. But, fast forward and our lives, while we don't know each other well, we've been in similar universes in that I covered Kyndryl and the spinoff from IBM. I've covered IT services for years. The last 2 years focused on sustainability. So I'm curious if we connect the dots now from those early days in the hospitality sector. How did you move into IT services with Kyndryl? How did you learn about the opportunity? And most importantly, how did you know that they were serious about sustainability? This was essentially a quote unquote new company coming out of IBM that didn't have an independent track record of its own yet.
Yeah. So because I built the program from the ground up, which was a great experience, I understand the nuances of how you build with the end in mind.
Hmm.
But you have to understand that hospitality touches many industries. IT was what we used to book revenue, book hotel rooms, to manage our building assets, right? Building management services. And I actually helped to develop a software solution to track, measure, and report our footprint in over 100 countries and 120,000 assets. How are
Hmm.
you going to do that unless you have a software solution? So I did have that background from developing products that had an IT focus. Now, fast forward, I got a call from Tesla to come help them with their program because the woman who was at Tesla had been was their HR chief human resource officer that I had worked with at Wyndham.
Hmm.
She called me and said, "Would you consider helping us?" And I was like, "What do you mean help you?" But I was able to do that. So it was an incredible journey where she said, "Look, your experience in being able to build this and working in a hospitality industry, which is very broad. People just think, oh, it's just hotels,
Right.
timeshare, rental exchange, but all of the things that you have to include to run it, the software, the food and beverage, the furniture, fixtures, and equipment, the travel services that are connected to it, and all of the logistics is huge. So you touch many industries. So I felt very comfortable when I had the chance to work with Tesla. And then I got the call from Kyndryl. I was traveling every week back and
Hmm.
forth to New Jersey, California.
Some
They
things
said,
never
"Would you
change.
consider, would you?" Yeah, something's gotta change, and I said, "You know what? I need to change where my focus is." And they said, "Would you consider coming here to help us build this from the ground up?" And I said,
Right.
"Absolutely." And it's the leadership here who has the commitment. Our CEO, we have an ESG council of all of his direct reports, and the board of directors said, "You have to hire this type of person to help us." I'm very fortunate that I work with an incredible lady she oversees government affairs and communications and this,
Hmm.
Una Pulizzi. But at the end of the day, it's really about the people across the enterprise. Because as you know, this is more than just environmental. We
Yeah.
work with human resource officer, chief legal counsel, even our CFO, and our chief operating officer actually is front and center. I work with him all the time in terms of how we're implementing our strategies to get to our goals. So that journey, for me has actually set me up to be able to work in a technology company. The principles are the same, but now we are using technology to deliver the services to the industry. And a lot of those, to be frank with you, customers were customers that I've had, have had interaction with in the past because of my
Mhm.
background.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. You know, a lot of the research that I read and even the reader comments that we get on our site, in certain sectors, I think you and Kyndryl are still um, the rare example of this cross collaboration between all departments. So many organizations still are struggling with it, where the CSO gets this mandate to go on a sustainability journey, but then they don't have the interactions and the support of the other departments or organizations or business units in the company. Do you think other industries are making progress there, or is IT services a little bit ahead on this, particularly Kyndryl?
Yeah, so I would say we're a little bit ahead on this. It really does depend on your leadership. I'm going to be really
Mm,
frank with
yeah,
you. And at the end of the day, this function can report into so many different areas. It can report into your CEO, your chief legal counsel, your chief human resource officer, all of the different areas it can report into. And at the end of the day, it is about leadership and where you place it,
right,
to see how it's integrated. And it is up to the leadership of the company to say, is this integrated into how we actually run our business? Or is it a program that we say is on the, another department? But it's very different. And I know this from experience if you integrate it versus not. So
right.
we have integrated it. We're only, 2.5, we'll be 3 years old in this November. So that's not very long to do the amount of work that we've accomplished. And I came because I saw the commitment. And
Right.
I know what it means to have a department on the side which is not integrated.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Now, sometimes the media, myself included, we're guilty of saying, "Oh, this company has set scope one, scope two, scope three goals by so and so year," right? Now we get the information out there, but then we don't do a deeper dive and we don't explore like, hey, is the HR function aligned with that? Is sales aligned with it? Is the supply chain aligned with that? Can you talk a little bit about herding ducks or herding cats, I should say, as I mix my metaphors, or just getting alignment so that each department is responsible for a piece of the overall puzzle in this march towards sustainability?
So um there's a couple of different ways that you can do that in terms of how do you get alignment. I
Mm,
think there's number one, understanding the overarching company strategy and how we fit into that in terms of how we grow and how we go to market. I think it absolutely has to be part of your business proposition of the program. Now, how you work with all of the different departments is an opportunity where every month, every quarter, you have KPIs.
mm,
Say, how are we doing against those KPIs and goals? And we do that. We're very rigorous with that as a company. And those KPIs are managed by the senior leadership team
right,
with people across the organization that tracks, measure, and reports against that. So that's a way to help you. The other way is to share with the groups the regulatory compliance, the investor rating agency recommendations and frameworks, and using that as benchmarks as well as your competitive markets, using that as a benchmark to share best practices. Where are the opportunities to further move the program forward or not? Depends on where you are in your maturity and what you can and cannot do at that time. So, but by presenting that information, it enables you to understand what you can execute, and then therefore that enables you to have a way to have a common language and grounds for conversation and understanding. And you know what, not everything is agreed upon, having done this for over 20 years, but there are things where you say these are table stakes that we have to do now, and these are things that we can do in the future. So those are some of the things that you actually have discussions about with each of the groups, because it is different, let me say, in the environmental space versus the social space versus the governance space. It is different types of conversations. The other thing is that it is pretty broad.
Yeah.
It's very broad. And so being able to have leaders, right, in the different areas, the chief procurement officer, the chief diversity officer, your chief risk management, chief accounting officer. I work with all of those to
Right.
help us understand what their goals, how it ties into our overarching goals. So there's a huge amount of communication and interaction that occurs.
Got it. Excellent. Now, you know a little bit about me. I'm a little bit of a geek at heart, and I've covered IT forever. So I want to double click on some updates that recently happened at Kyndryl. You and I are speaking in early August 2024. In July of 2024, maybe a couple weeks ago, and I may mispronounce the name, so I apologize. But on the CIO front, I think it was Kim Basile or Kim Basile. Did I get that right?
Mhm.
Um, Succeeded Mike Bradshaw, who's now shifted over to applications, data, and AI. So Mike is still with the company, but Kim is now the CIO. You also have an office of the CTO. Can you talk a little bit, especially, Kyndryl's a worldwide managed service provider, IT infrastructure manager. You're deeply involved in data centers. You're deeply involved in IT devices and the management of those devices. Can you talk about working with those departments within Kyndryl amid the shift to green data centers, amid the focus on reducing e-waste, et cetera?
Yeah, so yes, we do have a very large data center infrastructure. And the way that we work with those groups is through number one, getting the data and information that we need. And we do have a new CIO and CTO. And what's great is that we continue to evolve as we develop the foundation.
Mhm.
Michael Bradshaw was great in terms of helping us to consolidate our assets and applications and
Right.
reduce them, right? And because as you know, it's very complex. So he was responsible for the internal and how do we actually implement that and simplify so that we are currently on an SAP system, which is efficient, enables us to get data more in a real time fashion. And so that was critical. As he leverages that experience, he's able to move into an offering where we can actually share that story
Yeah.
and expertise with our customers. So it makes a lot of sense. And she's been there throughout this entire journey. So, and also she's able to leverage that experience to help continue with the transformation journey. So
Right.
that's that part. On the CTO front, we work closely with Antoine, and some of the things that we do work with him is, for example, developing customer facing solutions. So, for example, we have the solution called Sustainability Advisor, and we actually have the Bridge platform, which is an integrated platform that enables you to look at your IT infrastructure and assets and talk about where you're efficient or not and where there's opportunities. Sustainability Advisor has been part of that to actually define the carbon usage of that.
Yeah.
So as people are on this journey to reduce and become more efficient, we're able to quantify not only the financial impact, the efficiency, as well as the sustainability. And that's been critical. And we've worked with the CTO office in developing that type of solution. So you can see that's been external customer facing, developing solutions. And we also use it for ourselves on our own data centers because you use it in a data center environment where you get all of the information about your IT infrastructure. So you can see that it's been very much a collaboration working with the teams as we have gone forward. And as we continue on this journey, you're going to see us do more with developing customer solutions, which is really very important.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I want to give our readers some context on this, and I'll give you some numbers. So I'll date myself a little bit. Over the last 7 years, give or take, my previous job, I covered maybe 2,000 to 2,500 M&A deals and or spinoffs involving MSPs and IT service providers.
Wow.
Of those 2,500, including Kyndryl spinning out of IBM, of those 2,500, I can name two service providers that have extended from IT monitoring and management to carbon monitoring and management, and you're one of them. So
Wow.
congratulations on that. I mean, it's one of the reasons we've so closely followed the company, and your earnings call, by the way, not only about how you're doing financially, but your executive team gets on and talks about this extension from IT management and monitoring to carbon management and monitoring, and it's a welcome conversation on our site, but I think it's not a conversation that's happening often enough in the broader IT market. And we hope to change that. But it's been great to see from Kyndryl. Congratulations on that. So,
You.
and that speaks about your customer focus, your
Yeah.
alliances. You mentioned SAP as one of them. I'm wondering, you personally, how much of your personal focus involves assisting customers and alliance partners with their sustainability questions?
Oh my gosh. So number one, a lot. You see me traveling, you're like, where is she? Where's
Yeah,
she today? Well, it's been with customers.
yeah.
I mean, I have been meeting customers because I seek to understand what we really need to do and see where they are on their journey. And if we're going to provide solutions, how can we do that? Now, what's interesting in this short period of time, we have become the sustainability implementation partner for for Microsoft.
Mm.
Microsoft, we developed the sustainability barometer report with them, and
Yes.
that report, you probably heard 16 countries, 9 business verticals. The reason why we did it was to build a foundation from which to understand what the need of the market is. And what we found is that there's a disconnect between people, strategy, and technology. And where's that disconnect is how do you actually implement the solutions, right? Everybody believes that it's important, but at the end of the day, what are the areas and gaps and opportunities for improvement? So that research project that we did with Microsoft, which they said this is great, and because of our IT infrastructure experience, the sustainability advisor, they said, you know what? You can help us provide an end-to-end integrated solution for customers. We want you, Kyndryl, to be our strategic partner, one of 10, to help implement sustainable solutions. Now, why was that important within the first 3 years? In my mind, we have to develop global solutions.
Mm.
This is a global issue. It doesn't happen in one country versus another country. We have to scale, and the amount of mitigation and adaptation that we have to do has to be at scale. And the only way you can do that is through alliances and partnerships. So this is the first of many partnerships that we're developing. And at the end of the day, it's absolutely necessary. I understand this from being in this space so many years, that that's how we're going to get to be able to say, you know what, we've solved for some of these things that we're currently challenged with.
Yep, yep. Question out of left field for you. You mentioned this need to scale. I know Kyndryl's been very proactive about building relationships with the hyperscalers.
Mhm.
And now you have the whole AI conversation coming in. Like, on the one hand, AI may unlock new applications that help us get greener. On the other hand, some people are freaked out. AI is going to consume all the world's energy. I mean, so there's those extreme views, right? How are you feeling about the whole AI conversation right now and the reality check on whether it's a net positive, negative, neutral on the overall sustainability journey?
So the good news is that we're already talking about it.
Right.
No, my mind versus I know that we're an acceleration of AI and application of AI. The good news is that we're talking about it right now, and we need to be.
Right.
And the conversation and how we're talking about it, and I've done a lot of discussions around the environmental impact and even talked with our government about this in terms of they're looking at policies that we should be implementing. Well, number one, what is the source of energy from which we actually implement AI technology?
Right.
And it has to be renewable. Now, that's a challenge because do we have enough data centers and energy to support that? And currently, we're saying no. So we're saying, where do you actually develop those data centers? Can we develop them with renewable technology or other? And that can get controversial. But at the end of the day, what is that? The other piece is how you develop it, right? So the source and then how you develop it.
Right.
How you develop the technology in terms of the actual coding. Is it efficient coding? What are the ways that we're developing that application, and what types of chips do we use to actually execute the applications, and is it efficient chips, because now there's incredible technology around that that's doing it at a different rate.
Yep.
And then at the end of the day, what do we do to track, measure, and report this, that it's not 200, 300, 400% increases in the usage of energy for implementing AI technology and applications. So to me, the good news is that we're talking about it. Everyone is thinking about how do we get ahead of it and in front of it. But there is a lot more work to be done, but you can see that we are having the right conversations.
Gotcha. Excellent. Thank you for the background on that. Hey, question about your travels. Are you heading to COP29? And also any key learnings from COP28? How are you feeling about those gatherings and whether or not they're worthwhile these days?
Well, COP28 to me was excellent because that's where my strategic partnership with Microsoft came about.
Okay.
We were there together. The other great part of COP28 was being able to work with a lot of nonprofit groups and being able to actually see the types of new technology. Bill Gates has, many of his technologies on display. You had a tremendous number of NGOs who were there, and students, which to me is very important, the next generation of students who were there learning as well. And so that's a great forum for that. Now, we have to do a lot more. I think we're all not happy with the progress that we're making in terms of actual reductions and how that translates from that setting to actual implementation of reductions, right? So
Mhm.
we have to do more. And I cannot speak to all of the ways that we need to do that, but that's part of it. COP29, we are not going to participate this year. We're planning to go on the following year.
Okay.
Some companies go every year. We're looking at it more of a maybe every 2-year cadence, and making sure that as we do this, that we are having something that's substantial to talk about in terms of reductions, partnerships that we can leverage to scale solutions. So be very intentional with what
Right.
we're doing at that event. Because we're only 2.5 years old, going to that one last year was great. We need another year of continuing to build, and then we plan to participate in the next one.
Fantastic. Okay. Hey, final question for you. You've covered a lot of ground for us, and I appreciate it. For a viewer or a reader who wants to get some more information or some preliminary information about Kyndryl and the sustainability strategy or milestones, is there a particular website or web page or URL to go to?
Yeah, so we're Kyndryl Corporate Citizenship Report. We'll have all of the information there, links, articles. Our report is very comprehensive in terms of all the things that we've accomplished. Our next report will come out in September, so
Okay.
it's just next month. So it's great. Number 2, which will show the progress versus our baseline. So that's where they can go and find us, or you can find me on LinkedIn. A lot of people do these days. It's been wonderful. But I'm all about making sure that we're on this journey together, and I appreciate everyone trying to reach out to us.
Fantastic. Well, I'll tell you what, in our blog, I'll make sure we link to your LinkedIn. We'll link to the report. We'll make sure our viewers and listeners can find you. But in the meantime, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. This has been great, and look forward to the next conversation.
This podcast is copyright of Sustainable Tech Partner and Mentori Ventures. Music written, performed, and copyright of my son, also named Joe Panettiere.